folks, welcome back to another Palentines video, and today let's talk a bit about the upcoming Palentines 2023 Mallow and Appletun, which will be dropping tonight at reset as usual. We will be attempting to pull a few copies live, so yeah, make sure y'all are subscribed, have notifications on to join the stream whenever that happens. So anyways, alright, Mallow, Palentines 2023 and Appletun. So it's a seasonal support, right, basically. And it's a support that heals a lot, right? So just a quick overview. First of all, its stats, good defenses, right? Kind of mediocre HP, honestly, and not that great speed, and then not good special attack. So basically, defense is good, everything else not great. So outside of that, in terms of the moves, you got Dragon Pulse, which is 3-gauge move, right, on a support. That's really slow. And then you have Dire Hit All Plus, obviously max crit buffs for your team. And then Apple Acid, 2-gauge move, debuffs your opponent's special defense by 1, which is really nice. And then your trainer move Order Up, charges the move gauge for 2, or by 2 for each ally sync on the field, blah blah blah, and co-op battle. No one cares because no one plays co-op. And then raises defense of all allied sync pairs by 3 ranks. You got 2 use of that, so you can max out your team's physical defense if you want, right? And then your sync move is whatever. And then, okay, as for the passive, you got Team Fist Bump, you got Midpoint Mend 5, and Initial Synchro Healing. Basically, all 3 of them healing skills. 1, healing guaranteed heals your team by a bit. Every time an attack move is successful by Appletun. And then the second one heals 50% of your maximum HP first time your HP drops below half. And then the last one heals up 40%, got fixed now, heals up 40% HP of your entire team when you use the sync move for the first time in each battle. Unfortunately, it's only the first time, but it does heal up 40%, I guess. So alright, so that's the cool stuff. In terms of the grid, alright, and let's have a quick look. At 1 out of 5, you don't really get too much over here, right? Don't really get too much. It's just more stats, I guess. And then 2 out of 5, you have Team Sync Cure, right? You got Quick Cure, you got Sterner Stuff, which reduces some damage. You get hit by physical moves. And then Flabbergast 4 with Apple Acid, right? Charge Tank 4, which is 50% of healing yourself when you get hit by an attack move, although it's only for yourself, but it is like 50%. And also, it's not like a lot. It's, again, just that Blastoise one. There's like a plus 40 HP, I guess, if you care. Plus 20 defense. Right, so that's, I guess, the more relevant stuff in his grid. Honestly, 2 out of 5. Her 2 out of 5 has a decent amount of stuff, man. Honestly, a decent amount of stuff in 2 out of 5. And 3 out of 5, you have 50% chance to flinch on Dragon Pulse. You got, team special attack buffs, right? When it's only like +1 every time you use a move, the Pokemon uses a move, so it's gonna be slow, but it's something, I guess. Revenge boost, free gauges every time you get hit by an attack move, 1 gauge at least. Vigilance is vigilance, can't get crit. A catalytic kick gives you move gauge acceleration when you use a trainer move. Impervious is nice, can't get your stats lower. Trip up on Apple Acid, debuff opponent speed when you use that as well, and then move gauge fresh 9 on Apple Acid. So honestly, you could get her at any copies, right? 1 copy is alright, I guess, right? Like, nothing too crazy on the base kit. You still get that max crit buffs, you still get the special defense debuffing over here, the max defense buffs, right? And then the team heals, all that stuff, personal heals. But 2 out of 5, you do get a decent amount of good things in here, right? Some stuff to deal with status and infliction, right? Some other stuff to help tank a bit better. You get that chance to confuse the opponent as well. And then 3 out of 5 is where you get most of like the big stuff, right? Vigilance, Impervious, Hype Up 9, right? Staggering 4, I guess, if you have the gauges. Revenge Boost 9 if you need the gauges. Trip Up 9, all that stuff, right? The extra debuff. So every single copy of this Mallow gives you, more stuff. So you don't need to have her at 3 out of 5. You don't need to have her at 2 out of 5, but it's nice to get her 2 out of 5. It's nice to get her 3 out of 5, right? So that's that. Go into some of the pros and cons, right? Starting with the pros. So first of all, a lot of team and personal heals, right? So she does have that. Like there's so many, man. There's like what, 1, 2, right? 2 different team heals, and she got another, I think 2, I believe, right? 2 personal heals as well that she could get in there. So a lot of heals that she has. And then after that, we also have max crit, defense, special attack buffs. There are some cons about that. We'll talk about that later. But can she technically max your team's crit, defense, special attack? Yes, she can technically do that. Vigilance and impervious on the grid, right? Especially for vigilance, it's nice. Because then you could maybe free up that lucky skill slot for something else for those who like running vigilance on their tanks, right? Run a head start, run a, I don't know, healthy healing for even more, even more heals. What's the wise entry? The one for some special defense. I don't know. There's a lot of other stuff. Or you could still run vigilance as a lucky skill, by the way, but saves you quite a bit of energy going all the way up there, right? But yeah, you do have that, and impervious is always nice to have for any tank, right? Then you have special defense and speed debuffs, which are, well, special defense and speed debuffs, which obviously really nice for special damage deals on your team or anyone who has any multipliers based on debuffing those 2 things. Have a chance to flinch and confuse, which are nice. Have move gauge returns, right? Multiple ways of doing that, whether it's Apple Acid, move gauge refresh 9, catalytic kick, right, on your trainer move. Your trainer move itself giving gauges back, revenge boost 9. So there is a decent amount of ways to get gauges back, right, despite the relatively low speed, and has good defense stats. So that's some of the pros. As for some of the cons here, obviously, slow, right? I mean, 239 speed is not very fast. No speed buffs either. Again, she does have a lot of ways to help with that, right? With all the gauges that she gets back and a lot of other different areas we talked about earlier, right? Her special attack buffs are very slow, right? It's like +1 per, Pokemon move used, right? So it's going to be really slow. It's fine to top off like a unit that has, self +4 special attack buffs. It's going to be a lot harder to get a unit from +0 all the way up to +6, right? That's going to take a long time. Probably not worth it in most case scenarios. So yeah, she has an awkward trainer move, and what this means is like this order up over here, right? It charges your team's move gauge, right? And also buffs the defense of your team by 3. And that's generally kind of awkward because usually you want to use this earlier in the battle, right? So, when you just get into the battle, maybe you buff crit first, but, or you could buff physical defense first. But usually at the start of the battle, everyone's just using their trainer moves and buffing and stuff, right? Setting up. And people don't really use gauges that much. So, like, the gauges that you get back from this trainer move, a lot of times is going to be completely wasted. Or if you do want to keep the trainer move for those gauges back later, right? When you are running out of gauges, you get some clutch, gauges back. That means you can't, max out your physical defense, right? Which is obviously not going to help her tank. So it is a pretty awkward trainer move, unfortunately. And then also her passive over here is kind of awkward too. Initial synchro healing too. It heals your entire team's HP by 40%, only the first time when the user's sync move is used in a battle, which is also kind of awkward, right? Because usually, if you do have a support EX over here, if she's not support EX, then, that's not as big of a deal. But if she is support EX, most of the time you want to use your support EX to sync first. And if you're syncing first, your first sync, unless something terrible has gone wrong, right? Most of the time, the opponent has not even synced yet, so unless it's a stage that does a lot of like AoE spamming in the first 3 turns of the battle, most of your team is probably not going to be like are going to be at max HP straight up, right? And that's just basically going to waste the heals over there, right? So that's kind of awkward as well, right? As for another thing, I guess special defense not as good. The stat is fine, right? I mean, 268 stat is fine, but you don't have any special defense buffs, right? To obviously make it much higher. You know, if a unit with much lower special defensive stats, right, than Mallow, they had like +6 special defense buffs. Obviously, you know, depending on the stats, a lot of times they would tank much better than Mallow would, right? Even though she has higher special defense stats. Her HP is actually really low. As you could probably see behind the thing, right? It's what, 3 or 567 HP, which is not even low key. It's high key, kind of low. And mostly because she is a unit that does a lot of self healing, but like healing is always based on percentage of your maximum HP, right? So actually not healing back that much HP. Right, so I guess that is a bit of a concern, although obviously there are different ways to increase your max HP, right? Whether you pick up that HP plus 40 node on your grid, or through things like theme skill, or obviously gear and all that stuff. So yeah, that's another thing you get around. Last one I guess is potentially expensive grid. Obviously it depends on what you run, depends on what units you're running on your team, right? What you need her to support, what stage you're going up against, right? I mean, like, do they status? Do they try to inflict you, right? That, you know, obviously does determine which nodes you pick up. So she could have a potentially expensive grid, right? Just because there's so many things. And look, this is not much of a con, just because she has so many great stuff on her grid, right? So it's like, it's a first world problem over here, right? Unlike some other units who just straight up don't have anything good on the grid. At least she has some stuff, a lot of great stuff on her grid. So yeah, it can get expensive depending on your use, obviously, being a support. So speaking of her grid, let's go over some, I guess, sync grid build and lucky skill recommendations. First, in terms of lucky skill, again, this highly depends on you know, what you're trying to go for in terms of the grid, right? I mean, if you are 1 out of 5 or 2 out of 5, probably you could just go for straight up vigilance most of the time, right? Which is fine, but I don't know. I feel like vigilance is highly overrated as a passive. Like, it's good, don't get me wrong, but it's, you know, it's not like people treat it as like the go-to like passive or lucky skill for tanks, which again, no problem with that, that's fine. But you know, there's a lot of other great skills, right, that probably in a lot of other scenarios would be much better. But you know, again, vigilance is fine, right? But other stuff like adrenaline, head start, healthy healing, what's the move gauge back thing, right? Obviously those stuff are great too. You could also give her wise entry to help with her special defense issue as well, among other things, right? Again, you could always, you know, grid her, or not grid her, give her roll her a temporary lucky skill to deal with a specific opponent, right? If they, for example, like Tornadoes, yeah, you want to give her like antitoxin or whatever, you could do that, or like Regirock, and you give her like Rock Guard something, I don't know, right? You customize that. So anyways, moving on, let's talk about the grid then. So 1 out of 5. I don't know, man. You pick up everything if you have the orbs. If not, if you want to save on orbs, just pick up everything like blue. Okay, everything blue. All right. 2 out of 5 is where you get a lot more interesting stuff that you could potentially pick up, right? So I'd say of all of them, Sterner stuff is probably the one that's not really. I a Trage Tank 4 is probably the one that's like most universal, right? Like you could use it on almost any stage, and it could be effective, right? And everything else is kind of depends. I guess HP plus 40 is also kind of universal, but yeah, everything else kind of depends. If you're fighting a physical stage, right, you can pick up Sterner stuff. If you're fighting a special stage, you don't have to pick up Sterner stuff, right? If you need more gauges, you can maybe try to get an NPR in your trainer move, right? It is NPR too, but it's like, you have 2 uses, so it's not that bad, right? So you could do that. Or if you really are struggling against a super physical stage, you could pick up both of these, right? Sterner stuff and defense, and like straight up even like HP plus 40 over here, and that would probably help you tank a lot, right? Maybe even pick up Flapper gas to, make them confused, and if they get themselves in confusion a few times, that helps you as well, right? Tanking. And then just these 2 really just depends, right? Really depends on what stage you're fighting. If they do have some annoying status, you could go for the Team Sync Cure, right? It's not the initial Team Sync Cure 9. It's, you can use it whenever. Well, not whenever, when you have your sync, right? Or Quick Cure if they do any of those infliction stuff. If they do both, well, damn, pick up both then. You could drop something else. I don't know, something if you don't need this, you could drop that. If it's not as physical of a stage, you could drop one of these, right? Whatever, and pick up, I don't know, speed. So let's start at 5. For 3 out of 5 over here, again, a lot more options that you could go for. If you can afford the gauges for flinching, you could go for that, right? If you can't, then don't go for it. Like, it's a 3 gauge move, man. If you're trying to run her with someone that has Cakewalk or Hunter's Instinct or something like that, you could pick up the Trip Up. That's nice. Just pick up Move Gauge Refresh 9 on Apple Acid, since you're probably going to be using that a lot, right? Again, Trage Tank 4 is always going to be useful. Again, it doesn't heal up that much, but I mean, it heals up something. So maybe pick up Impervious. This is where, again, running Vigilance as a lucky skill is still very valid, very much valid on Palentines Mallow, even though she has Vigilance on grid, right? It's just in a very awkward spot. I mean, it takes so much to get there, right? Like, what's the cheapest route? This is the cheapest route, and it costs you, what, 5, 12, 22 energy. And then you have to pick up like this, which is completely useless outside of Balvala, right? And if you want to not have it completely useless, there you go, 25 energy to pick up with Vigilance. So honestly, I'd still even at 3 out of 5, I'd recommend maybe if you want to go, if you need Vigilance, you just run that as a lucky skill instead. And yeah, you could do something like this. If you want the Catalytic Kick for the extra move gauge acceleration, you could do that too. Although it depends on the scenario, right? In terms of if Apple Acid is better or Catalytic Kick is better, right? Because it depends on how long the stage is probably going to be between those 2. But yeah, if you do want to also buff special attack, right, or just max out someone's special attack on the team, obviously you can pick Hype Up there. And again, like grids like these are just highly customizable depending on what you're trying to fight, right, and stuff. So like if you want to do some like flinch stuff with Dragon Pulse, you could do that, and then you could come over here and pick up Revenge Boost. You also have Quick Cure in there if you need it. If you don't, then you just go over here. Not that this helps much, it just costs less, right? So yeah, Revenge Boost. And can you afford Catalytic Kick? I don't think so, right? Yeah, you can't afford that, even if you do go here, unfortunately. So yeah, if you are going to go the staggering Dragon Pulse route, just good luck, man. Just hope the opponent hits you a lot. And even so, I'm not even sure if it's really that great to help keep up. But yeah, I mean, you know what? Maybe this move gauge refresh too. Pick up some HP. So yeah, again, a highly customizable grid. You could do a lot of. If you really want to pick up Vigilance over here, yeah, you could do it. But again, it just doesn't leave you with too much room to pick up a lot of other things. Like if you want hype up over here, I guess you could get that, but like that's kind of about it, right? And or for example, honestly, like if you are going all the way up here, you might as well just pick up Revenge Boost 9, unless you really don't want it, which is fine. Pervious over here, you still can't afford a Catalytic Kick 9. You barely can't afford Trip up here either, unfortunately. Oh, well, I guess you can if you like drop this, but sure, right? So again, there's just a lot of ways to acquire the skills that you need from her grid, right? Just do keep in mind you're not getting them all, man. You're not getting them all. Just pick and choose depending on the stage, your teammates, all that stuff. So you can't talk too much about her grid, or else it's gonna take like hours going over scenarios, right? Which is probably not ideal. Anyways, I'd say overall it's pretty good support, right? Pretty good support in many respects. We've obviously already went through the pros and cons over here, right? And I'd say like a lot of the cons can, I won't say completely be fixed, but at least be mediated somewhat, right, with some of her pros and some other things that she can do. So there really isn't like too much downside, I guess, to this unit, right? Just a lot of really great stuff that she does in terms of being a tank, right? In terms of being a crit buffer and all that stuff, a special defense debuffer, right? These are my favorite supports, man. Favorite supports that after using all their trainer moves and all that stuff, they just don't sit around and just take hits like a dummy, and actually like can contribute with other moves and stuff to debuff the opponent or status or whatever, right? Do damage even. Latios. But yeah, it's a good support. It's a good support. Really don't have much terrible things to say about it, other than like it's not her fault. But we got some really good units coming up. Right, just got a lot of really good units coming up with the Crobat and Emma, right? With Singsuit Lysander and Volcanion, even with the Annabelle, right? Even though people aren't super excited about that kit, it's still really good. I mean, I'd say in a lot of scenarios you probably would prefer that Annabelle. Well, obviously all supports are like, it's honestly kind of weird to compare supports just because they're just used for different scenarios, right? But anyways, yeah, it's a really nice, especially nice for Gauntlet, right? Sort of support, which gives her enough time to do all that stuff, right? Because like honestly, look at it, right? Dara hit all, that's 2 turns maxing out your team's crit. 2 turns maxing out your team's physical defense, right? That's 4 turns already, and then you want what, 6 turns to get the opponent's speed / special defense to -6. That's like 10 turns to get all that stuff done, right? So Gauntlet, Gauntlet stages give you the time, man. Gauntlet stages give you the time, and also the fact that she cures status, right? The fact that she could get out of certain scenarios in terms of getting inflicted only once, but still, right? Impervious, right, against certain Gauntlet stages, also really nice. Obviously the heals are always good for Gauntlet, and yeah, again, Gauntlet stage is also long enough for you to get a +0 special attack unit, +6 as well. And the confusion and flinch are nice for Gauntlet too. Only not that great thing for Gauntlet is the speed, right? She's alright in master mode. Just takes a while to get things going, right? Master mode, obviously you prefer units that get things done a bit faster, right? And she doesn't really do that, unfortunately. The only thing she does fast is max out your team's crit and physical defense, and outside of that, everything else she does is relatively slow, unfortunately. So more of a Gauntlet unit than a mass mode unit, but yeah, overall I'd say we'll give it a 6.5 out of 10, right? 6.5 out of 10. Definitely something worth considering, right? Especially if you are a bit low on Gauntlet tanks / supports, which honestly, unless you're a person that only summons for tanks / supports and like don't summon for damage dealers at all, I'd say most people are going to be down on tanks supports for Gauntlet. I feel like tanks / supports for Gauntlet are usually the bottlenecks for people's runs, right? And that's her. She's a tank / support for Gauntlet, right? So she's definitely very, very much worth considering. But also, again, like I mentioned before, there's other units like the Emma, like the Lysander coming up. 3.5 year anniversary is coming up as well. I guess the Leon rerun for those who are interested with the G-Mags, you know, that's something as well. Even still, the Singsu Diantha, if anyone still hasn't picked her up yet, alright, that's still something worth considering pulling for as well. I wouldn't recommend it, but you know, some other banners that drop, like the Palentines Mallow as well, if you want, I guess. But yeah, just a lot of stuff coming. Again, Annabelle too. Keep on forgetting about her. But yeah, anyways, that's me in this one, I guess. Hope you all learned, guys. Think in the comments down below. Like, enjoy the videos. We're gonna have some more Palentines content. I like this unit. I think it's great. And yeah, have fun. I'll see you guys in the next one then.